The year is 1947. World War II, a conflict that reshaped the globe, has just ended. Yet, from its ashes rises a new struggle, the Cold War. The United States and the Soviet Union, once allies, become locked in an ideological battle. Democracy versus communism, capitalism versus socialism. The world divides into two camps, each suspicious of the other, each vying for global dominance. This rivalry, though bloodless in direct confrontation, casts a long shadow over the latter half of the 20th century. The Cold War was more than just a political standoff. It was a clash of ideologies, a battle for the hearts and minds of people worldwide. It infiltrated every aspect of life, from the economy to culture and technology. This essay explores a hypothetical scenario. What if the Cold War, instead of ending in 1991, had continued for another 3 decades? How would this extended period of tension and competition have shaped our world? The Cold War was a time of unprecedented technological advancement, much of it driven by the arms race. Both sides poured vast resources into developing more powerful weapons, from nuclear bombs to intercontinental ballistic missiles. This competition, however, had an unintended consequence. It fueled innovation in other areas. The space race, for example, led to breakthroughs in rocketry, materials, science and telecommunications. The fear of falling behind drove both sides to push the boundaries of science and engineering. This resulted in the development of technologies that would later transform civilian life, from the internet to GPS navigation. An extended Cold War could have led to even more breakthroughs as both sides continued to seek a technological edge. Imagine, for instance, a world with even more advanced computing power, artificial intelligence, or space exploration capabilities. However, this technological progress came at a cost. The constant threat of nuclear annihilation created a climate of fear and paranoia. Resources diverted to the military were unavailable for other societal needs. Moreover, the Cold War often stifled scientific collaboration and the free flow of ideas. This raises the question, would a prolonged Cold War have ultimately hindered innovation? With resources perpetually channeled towards military advancement, other fields might have suffered. Imagine a world where cancer research stagnated, renewable energy remained unexplored, and social programs faced constant cuts. The fear of espionage and sabotage might have also created an environment of secrecy, hindering the open exchange of ideas crucial for scientific progress. The Cold War divided the world not just ideologically but also physically. The Iron Curtain, a metaphorical barrier separating East and West, became a tangible reality in many parts of the world. This division extended beyond Europe, influencing conflicts and political systems across the globe. An extended Cold War would likely have meant a continuation of these divisions, with proxy wars, political instability, and human suffering. Imagine a world where Germany remained divided, Korea stayed split, and Afghanistan continued to be a battleground for superpower influence. This extended period of tension might have led to further regional conflicts, each threatening to escalate into a global confrontation. The human cost of such a scenario is almost unimaginable. Section 5. The cultural divide, music, movies, and the message. The Cold War was also a cultural battleground. Both sides used propaganda to promote their ideologies and discredit their rivals. This ideological struggle played out in music, movies, literature, and art. An extended Cold War would likely have deepened this cultural divide, with each side creating its own echo chambers and demonizing the other. Imagine a world with two distinct cultural spheres, each with its own music, movies, and literature, each reflecting the values and anxieties of its respective bloc. This cultural separation might have led to greater misunderstanding and mistrust, making any future reconciliation even more difficult. Section 6. The economic impact, two systems, diverging paths. The Cold War was an economic competition as well. The capitalist West and the communist East offered competing visions of how to organize society and manage resources. An extended Cold War would likely have led to greater economic divergence between the two blocs. The West might have continued to experience economic growth and technological advancement, while the East, burdened by inefficiency and a lack of freedom, might have stagnated or even regressed. This economic disparity could have had profound consequences. On the one hand, it might have led to greater resentment and instability within the Soviet bloc, potentially even leading to its collapse. On the other hand, it might have pushed the West towards greater economic inequality and social unrest. Section 7. A new generation growing up in the shadow of conflict. An extended Cold War would have had a profound impact on the lives of ordinary people. Imagine generations growing up under the constant threat of nuclear war, their lives shaped by the ideological struggle between East and West. This constant tension might have created a climate of fear and suspicion, making it difficult to build trust and cooperation. Imagine children across the globe growing up with bomb drills as a regular part of their schooling, constantly reminded of the potential for annihilation. This constant fear might have led to a generation more risk-averse, less willing to challenge the status quo, and more susceptible to manipulation by authority figures. Section 8. The collapse of trust paranoia and the surveillance state. The Cold War fostered an atmosphere of paranoia and suspicion. Both sides engaged in espionage, subversion, and propaganda. This led to the rise of powerful intelligence agencies and a vast surveillance apparatus. An extended Cold War would likely have intensified these trends, eroding privacy and civil liberties in the name of national security. Imagine a world where every phone call is monitored, every letter opened, and every move tracked by an invisible web of surveillance. This erosion of privacy might have stifled dissent, stifled creativity, and created a climate of fear and conformity. Section 9. What might have been a world transformed? Extending the Cold War for another 30 years paints a complex and unsettling picture. On the one hand, it might have spurred further technological innovation, driven by competition and the fear of falling behind. On the other hand, it might have led to greater global instability, economic disparity, and a pervasive climate of fear and paranoia. The human cost of such a scenario is almost unimaginable. It's a stark reminder of the fragility of peace and the importance of cooperation. It also highlights the enduring legacy of the Cold War, a conflict that continues to shape our world in ways both visible and invisible. While we can only speculate about what might have been, one thing is certain. The end of the Cold War marked a turning point in human history, a moment of hope and opportunity that we must never take for granted. Gap 3S, Section 10, The Cold War and Global Crises. Imagine if the Cold War had persisted for another 30 years and then collided with a global disaster like COVID-19. The impact would have been profound, reshaping political, social, and economic landscapes in unprecedented ways. Politically, the pandemic could have intensified the rivalry between the superpowers. Each side might have used the crisis to undermine the other, spreading disinformation and blaming their adversaries for the origins and mishandling of the outbreak. The lack of cooperation would have likely exacerbated the spread of the virus, with each bloc hoarding medical supplies and technology, leading to significant human suffering. Socially, the pandemic could have deepened the existing divides. In the West, the fear of communism might have translated into heightened xenophobia and suspicion towards anyone perceived as an outsider. In the East, the authoritarian regimes might have used the crisis to tighten their grip on power, implementing even more stringent surveillance and control measures under the guise of public health. Economically, the strain would have been immense. The Cold War already placed enormous pressure on economies through military spending and competition. A pandemic would have further strained resources, potentially leading to economic collapse in more vulnerable states. The disparity between the rich and poor nations would have widened, with poorer countries suffering the most from the lack of international aid and cooperation. In this hypothetical scenario, the human cost is staggering. It's a stark reminder of the importance of global solidarity and the dangers of prolonged conflict. The Cold War's end brought hope and opportunities for collaboration that we must cherish and build upon, especially in the face of global challenges. As we reflect on this possibility, let us appreciate the value of peace and cooperation. The lessons of the past and the crises of the present remind us that our shared humanity transcends borders and ideologies. Gap 3S.